Good day. When you talk about consent, you usually talk about sharing the data that's derived from samples or from epidemiological studies or from data in large consortia. The Global Alliance for Genomics and Health has made its mission to develop strategies for responsible international data sharing. So I'm trying to share with you today some of the demonstration projects, tools, and so on that have been prepared that hopefully will allow us in the future to put together genetic data with clinical or health-related data. So its mission is to accelerate progress by building a common framework in a harmonized way, not standardized necessarily, but harmonized for responsible sharing of data, and to catalyze, to incite, to initiate data sharing projects, to support them and to promote them. Currently, there's 3 policies under development that go further than the framework, that are more detailed and help researchers and policymakers and patients and to understand what we mean by consent, by privacy and security, by accountability. And the first 2, consent and privacy and security, will be ready for the next GA4GH meeting in June. Accountability has just started. So let's look at some of these policies. Now, again, the framework is unique that it says that it presumes that consent has been obtained or that the protocol has been approved by an ethics body for data sharing. So we're starting one step past that wall that everyone seems to hit. But we do, in our consent policy, and I'll get back to it, do provide some guidance so that researchers who are using consented data and samples can actually check to make sure that they respect the wishes of participants. Privacy and security, again, also has something different in it from what you would usually find in a privacy and security document. And I think the most important, and you can read it all what's on the slide, but the most important are the idea of creating proportionate safeguards. So you don't put everything at the high level of super sensitive data, that you check and is the data really that sensitive? Will the benefits outweigh the risks and so on? And based on a realistic analysis, not hypothetical, what if one day someone does something somewhere. Now, there are 3 demonstration projects. The scientists in the audience will be more at ease with some of the details of these 3 projects that are being spearheaded, again, by volunteer scientists who are members of the Alliance. The first one, I can understand, it's a beacon, sort of like, is anyone out there that has a genome with A at a position such and such? And bing, someone around the world will answer yes or no. So they'll send out these beacons. Now, eventually, beacons will become more sophisticated and have different levels of information gathering. That's where, obviously, privacy and security interests will start to play a role. The BRCA challenge, the BRCA, as you know, the BRCA cancer gene, is going to create, or will attempt to create, an international federated database of all the breast cancer data that we already have, and to make it open, accessible, protected, but accessible, and a controlled access, and parts of it open. And in that way, I'll set up a database that is just as high in quality as some of them that are now available in the private sector. Hopefully, this will serve as a template for other projects who wish to do this for other diseases. And the Matchmaker Exchange, no, it's not for weddings, it's actually for matching phenotypic and genotypic data. And some of you will recognize the databases here from different institutions and universities and so on around the world. And if you have a gene and you're looking for a phenotype, or you have a phenotype and you're looking for a gene, you can actually join this Matchmaker Exchange. And particularly for rare diseases, this is extremely, extremely important. And there's a matchmaker in action. So behind all this, in terms of the regulatory ethics and working group, and also helping the different demonstration projects, is the Public Population Project in Genomics and Society. Now, it started in 2005 helping biobanks set up prospectively to be able to share data in the future by creating harmonized tools. What it is doing now is actually offering these tools. So we've created the International Policy, Interoperability, and Data Access Clearinghouse. I'm glad it's written out on the slide because this acronym always defeats me when I'm tired to remember what it stands for. And it has different components, which I'll show to you. But you can see here some of the projects already using the services of this clearinghouse as it supports the Global Alliance in its work. So to date, what have we done so far for the Global Alliance? Well, we've looked at 3 issues: legacy consents, the problem of people who consented in goodwill in 1990 and nobody talked about online cloud computing, no one talked about international data sharing, no one talked about potential commercialization. Then, what if you want to start now and you need clauses now for your project for international data sharing, and even we provided a template for, again, that you can customize. As I know this is a real problem, there's 4 questions that we ask. Was it even foreseen? It's not because the words aren't there that it wasn't in the spirit of the project to share across borders, or to have access to medical records, or to do genes or some research down the line that would make a link between environment and genes and so on. And perhaps one day to share with companies so that they can prepare the software, they can prepare products, devices, and drugs and so on that actually will allow you to have treatment and diagnoses. But there's no doubt that sometimes you have to have a reconsent if one of those conditions is missing, or the ethics committee says you need to reconsent. Or an ethics committee could say, well, wait a minute, this goes back to 1960. We can't reconsent 100,000 people. Half of them may have passed away. Why don't we send out a recontact and notify what we want to do, what you want to do as researchers, and allow people to opt out? Or if it's even a bigger issue of impracticability, feasibility, or cost, or whatever, or you could really upset people by contacting them, they might give you a waiver provided other conditions are met. We've also prepared clauses for international data sharing, and you can see some of the items there about privacy, about storage, about withdrawal. And finally, that generic consent form that I was telling you about. So I guess to conclude, what I really want to say is that there's a lot of goodwill here. People want to move from the spirit of the SNP consortium in 1990 that did the Human Genome Project to finally translating it by putting it together with genomic and with clinical data so as to see patterns, so as to contextualize diseases, so as to see what adding data from different diseases together, or across different diseases, or across different patients groups, actually allow us to move further from the lab to the bedside. But just in case you're not convinced yet of data sharing, I do have 2 doggies, but there's only one on this photo who tells you that in a very gentle and kind way that you should share your data. Thank you.